Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to a new video series called Ponder This, the Coffee Break Edition. Of course, the point of that is you get a chance to get you a cup of coffee, sit down, and let's have a conversation together. These videos will be a little bit longer, but I want to discuss some things I've read or learned about, or just create a conversation among our churches and among our people. This video today, I want us to chat some about the call to ministry. And I want you to hold on to the end if you can, because I want to share some things we can do to carry this conversation forward. So grab a cup of coffee and let's go. I want to begin with a quick rundown of my own call to ministry, so you kind of have a frame of reference. Back in '08, I spent several months just really struggling, knowing that God was trying to lead me or tell me or convict me of something. I just had no idea what it was. I call it my wilderness period, because I felt like that God had just sort of left me and I wasn't feeling His presence, et cetera, and it was a very difficult time for me. It was over a period of really 3 months of prayer and Bible study and till the end of '08 and beginning of '09, I realized that God was calling me into the ministry from my secular marketplace career in archaeology into the ministry. And I tell you, when I finally gave up into that, when I surrendered that, when I believed that's what God was doing, you talk about a weight being lifted off your shoulders. It was incredible. And it's hard to explain that to someone if you haven't experienced it, but the struggle is real. For me, I didn't want to believe God was calling me to the ministry. I thought I was the most unlikely person in the world who would ever be in the ministry. But here's the thing. As I was struggling with that, and even when I finally discerned that's what the Lord wanted me to do, I didn't have anybody there to help me. Now, of course, I had Lorinda, but I didn't have anybody there. I didn't have a pastor. I didn't have another brother in Christ who could help me walk through that. And I didn't even know that I could have used some help. But looking back now, I certainly wish that I had had some help in sorting all of that out, even after discerning the call and wanting and finding out what that next step was for me to take. One of the challenges we have in the Bethel Baptist Association, and again, we're not alone in this, this is a nationwide issue, is finding called men for the lead pastor role. And this is especially true in rural areas. Now, here's some research that's been done, and I don't want to throw a lot of numbers at you, but I think this is important. 3/4 of pastors who were surveyed in this particular study say that they at least somewhat agree with the following statement, and here it is. Here's the statement. You ready? It's becoming harder to find mature young Christians who want to be pastors. Now, that's a discerning statement, isn't it? That so many pastors believe that to be true. Now, if you take that trend, that it's becoming harder to find men who want to be pastors, if you take that trend and add on it the possibility in this other statistic, that 1/4 of pastors are wanting to retire within the next 7 years. So that tells us there that we've got 7 years before we're going to have a huge number of pastors who are retiring. So it's no mystery to know that we still need pastors. The need is going to continue to grow from this day forward. Now something else, again, I don't want to kill you with numbers, but here's something else that's worth noting that's across the board. If you could guess right now, what would you say is the average age of a pastor? We'll just say in the United States. 40, 45? Would you think it's 50? I used to think it was about 51, 52. Well, the last research I read, and this goes back to 2023, the average age now for a pastor is 59, and it's creeping closer and closer to 60. Even here in Alabama, if you do a quick scroll through the Alabama Baptist Job Board, it will show right now, if you go there to Alsbaum's website, there are over 50 churches right now looking for a pastor all across Alabama. But here's the thing. You say, well, 50 is not a big number. Well, that only represents the churches that are advertising right now. That's only the churches that haven't given up right now. And that's only the ones advertising on that particular website. Look in the Alabama Baptist when it comes in this week. Flip to the classified ads, and you'll see more listed there. I even read last year that there was a study done that over 550 churches in Alabama are without pastors. And again, most of those are in rural areas. We have, and I don't want to forget to mention this, we have some outstanding men in the Bethel Association who provide a much-needed service and pulpit supply, and their willingness to serve is greatly appreciated. I've had the opportunity to meet and talk with many of them. So I don't want anyone to hear me complaining about pulpit supply, but here's the thing. Every church needs a consistent, called, dedicated pastor shepherd who is there week to week to week to shepherd the flock, to lead the flock on God's mission for that church. So I've been reading several books that I wanted to have on hand to give to those who might come to me, because I've had a few begin this discussion with me. And they come and they say something along the lines of, I think I'm being called into the ministry. Or, what if I'm called into the ministry? So what I did is I grabbed several books that I've had for a while and added a few more to that. And of the several books that I read, 4 or 5 of them, and I read those so you don't have to, so you're welcome, I saved 2 that I believe would be beneficial to anyone who might be struggling with the question of, am I being called into the ministry? Or maybe it's someone who simply wants some clarity in the call that they have. One of those books I posted on our website, bethelba.org. It's a book entitled Called, and it's free. You can download it. It's a PDF. You can download it on our website. And the other book is called, or entitled, Is God Calling Me? And it's by Jeff Orge. Okay, you can find that book on Amazon or any other bookstore that you buy books from online. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the description for both of those. Now, I chose those 2 books because I was thinking, what would I have liked to have had given to me when I shared, that thought of I may be called into the ministry? What would I have wanted to read at that time? So I picked those 2 books because I found them useful. I found them practical for someone who is pondering this call to ministry. Look, they're very quick reads. They're not long books, but they are a great place to start. Now, one thing I'd like to mention and comment about Jeff Orge's book that I found especially useful for someone trying to discern a calling, and that's about what we'll call it the different levels of a calling when God calls us to serve. Now, the first level, and this is over here on this end of the spectrum, this first level we need to remember is that all believers are called to minister, right? This is one end of the spectrum. We don't have to stop as Christians. We don't have to wonder. We don't have to sit here and, let me think, is God calling me to minister? No, you don't have to do that. Yes, God wants you to minister, right? We're all ministers of the gospel. We're all ministers in some way. If you go look over in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where Paul wrote there, he says that since we have found reconciliation to God through Christ Jesus, then Paul writes there that he has given each of us as Christians the ministry of reconciliation. Paul goes on and describes there that we are ambassadors of Christ as Christians. So there is this one level of ministry that all believers are called to. We're all called to minister to people. We're all called to the ministry of reconciliation. Now, if you go up a level, as Jeff Orge kind of describes it, beyond that general call to minister, we know that some believers are called into some type of ministry leadership role. This could be being called to lead a small group like Sunday school, to lead VBS, to lead a particular ministry like men or women or youth or children. There are lots of different roles here. Now, for those of you who are serving in some leadership role in the church, I hope it was a call that you discerned from God to lead in that ministry. So that's the next level. We have a general call to minister. We have some who are called to a ministry leadership role in the church. And now we get to the other end of the spectrum. And I guess we could call this the far end, the third type of calling, and that's when some are called into the ministry. This is where we start talking about our vocation. This is what we do with our life, right? God is calling you maybe to transition into a fuller ministry role, or even add that role to your current career. In simple terms, we call that full-time ministry or co-vocational or bivocational ministry. Now, this level of calling I've heard said, and I believe it really comes down to this. This level of calling is when you cannot do anything else. Now, when I say that, don't laugh and think, well, so if I can't find a job, I'll just go into the ministry. Is that my default setting? No, that's not what that means. It's when you know that you must be in the ministry, right? It's when you can't do anything else. It's not that you're not able to or capable or have the ability. It's that you know in your very spirit, you know in your heart, you know in your soul, right? Because God has called you that you just can't do anything else. Now, it's probably something that you never sought after this calling. I didn't. I wasn't looking to go in the ministry. It might not be something that you even think you're qualified to be in the ministry. Well, neither me neither. I was the most unlikely person I thought in the world to go into the ministry. That's why I struggled with it so hard. It might even be that you're trying to avoid the call into the ministry. I know I did. I ran from it. That's why I spent 3 months where I felt like I was in the wilderness, because I kept believing God, surely not me. If you think about, for example, if you are struggling with the call to be a pastor, you might get to a place where you know there is nothing else you can do but be a shepherd. And you have that peace that surpasses all understanding, and nothing else is going to satisfy you. Nothing else will bring you peace except responding positively to that call from God. So surrender to the ministry might be an entire career change. Mine eventually did lead to that. But it could also be that God calls you into the ministry, but you also keep your current career. You may be a teacher or a coach or a business owner or work in the factory or in a mill somewhere. And God is calling you into the ministry. It doesn't always mean you've got to quit your career. God may call you to serve there in the workplace as well as serve somewhere else in the ministry. And look, there's a number of people in our association who serve that way. And there's a growing number, really across the country, a growing number and a growing need for bivocational pastors. And really this comes down to, in a lot of ways, economics. Post-pandemic, churches are in a different time and place than they were before. Churches have generally gotten smaller. And that usually means that they're not able to always provide for a fully paid pastor. So if we really think about it, and I felt like this for many years, our bivocational pastors are the real stars today, because they're often working 2 vocations in order to heed God's call. So bivocational, co-vocational pastors, we appreciate your service so much because we know you're juggling 2 totally different worlds there to be obedient to God. So if you've hung in this far, if you're not done with your cup of coffee yet, what's the point of all this? Well, the point is that God is still calling men to be pastors. Do you believe that? I hope you do. And here's the reality. We still need pastors. We still need leaders. So what can we do? What can we do within the Bethel Baptist Association to even look within and see if God is still calling men in our 2 counties into the ministry? Well, number one, obviously, if you are that person, or you know someone who might be trying to determine if God is calling them into the ministry, is to encourage them, or if it's you, find someone to talk to about that. You're certainly welcome to talk to me. I'd love to have that discussion with you, but if you're part of a church, I'd encourage you to reach out to your pastor and share with them that hey, Pastor, I think the Lord's calling me into ministry. Help me walk through this, right? Take a look at those 2 books I mentioned. Continue to pray and ask for God to bring clarity and peace into that question. Now, number 2, pastors, take the opportunity as you offer times of response in a service, that you don't neglect that there may be someone in that pew out there who is trying to discern a call into the ministry. Give them that invitation, right, to respond to that. That may not come down, but encourage them as you're giving the call for someone to come to salvation. If you're giving the call for someone to join the church, extend that call as well, to someone out there that may be dealing with a call into the ministry, and ask them to just come and share that with you so that you can pray with them. Maybe you can help them walk through that. Number 3, and this again to pastors and other ministry leaders, pray that God would send you a young, teachable Timothy, just like Paul had a Timothy that he was pouring his life into. Pray that God would lead you to a teachable person, a teachable young man, someone that you might see with pastor potential, someone that you might see as a ministry leader in the making, and take them under your wing and disciple them and mentor them. Who knows? They could be your next associate pastor in your own church. And lastly, number 4, and this is for the long term, I want to encourage all of us, all of our churches, to take a look at the next generation in your congregation and determine if they're being released for ministry and mission, or are they just simply viewed as the church of tomorrow. Look, we need them to know right now, and we need them to embrace right now that they are the church of today. They don't have to wait till tomorrow. They are the church of today, just like the adults. Allow the next generation in your church to serve. Allow the next generation in your church to be part of the congregation as fully as possible, and to begin now to learn that their service does matter beyond their own age group. We've got to begin to reach out and cultivate the next generation of leaders, and we need to start with the leaders that are within our own churches. I hope that you found something of value in this video, and as the title of this series, Ponder This, says, I hope I've given you something to ponder on. Please, if you know someone that you believe is struggling with a call to ministry, if you're that person, reach out to someone and share that. If nothing else, at least get one of these 2 books and begin to read it on your own and just ask God to bring clarity to what He's trying to teach you and what He's trying to help you to understand. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for being part of the Bethel Baptist Association. And as always, anything I can do to help you, please let me know if I don't find you first. You guys have a blessed day. Goodbye.